Welcome to Richmond Raceway for the second race of the 2023 NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. Today, it's the Virginia's for Racing Lovers 150. Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Koss alongside longtime modified announcer Ben Dodge. Ben, this is a race that everyone circles on their calendar, but we had to wait an extra day. Last night, the event got rained out. Today, everybody is anxious to go racing.
They certainly are anxious, and I think the story in today's event is the fact that everybody has had plenty of extra time. We'll call these cars bears, and they were growling on pit road. All of a sudden, they were hibernating again, and we were about to get them kicked off today. The sun is shining, and we've got some great underlining stories as well.
Among them, the 64 car on the pole position. It's Austin Beers. He's been in the series now for 3 years. This is his second full-time season. In 22 starts, he will start on the Mayhew Tool Pole Award for the very first time here this afternoon. He was quickest in practice, quickest in qualifying. Can he hang on to that position and get his first win today?
Sure can. Now let's take a look back at the first event of the season. He led for 51 laps. Ronnie Uhouse, the crew chief, they came in for a pit stop, not one but two of the guns jammed, forcing them out of contention for their first victory. They're long overdue. But that's not the only story. Let's go to the rear of this field for another look at a competitor that we seldom see there.
And that is Matt Hirschman in the 60 car. Matt Hirschman comes in a 60 car, but it's not the traditional PD Motorsports car that we're used to seeing. This is an Alan Deering-owned, a Darrell Baker-owned number 60. For Matt Hirschman in this team, he's so many wins last season, so strong. He's a guy that is super fast, but they had no practice yesterday because of an oil line. He's got one lap around this racetrack, and that came in qualifying here yesterday.
It certainly did. An interesting kind of a Cinderella story that surrounds this deal. The first time that Matt Hirschman drove for this team, he was asked, the owner of the race car said, "I'm not so sure Matt Hirschman would even drive my race car." It was at Riverhead. They had success, but they have not got back together since then. Will this marriage work today? Well, it's certainly going to be put to the test.
It was a third-place finish that day for Matt Hirschman in this 60 team at the Islip 300. Can they duplicate that success? It's a very tall order. Now, Matt Hirschman's father won this race back in 2001. The Hirschman family has been in victory lane here at Richmond Raceway before, but Matt Hirschman has a long way to go at the back of a very talented field.
Certainly does, and of course there have been 12 events for the Modifieds run here under the NASCAR banner, and Ricky Fuller won the very first one, driving Kurt Chase's race car. That was way back in 1990. There's only been one three-time winner, Joe, and it is a name that is synonymous with modified racing, Mighty Mike Stefanik. He was the only guy that did it 3 times. But interesting, when we looked at our stats, is Reggie Ruggiero. Even though his victory came back in 2000, his speed was the fastest of 107-plus miles per hour.
Also in the field here today, Ben, we've got a former NASCAR Cup Series champion and a NASCAR Hall of Famer. Bobby Labonte in the field today makes his second career NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour start. He'll drive the SS Racing number 38 machine. It's a car owned by Hermie Sadler, former NASCAR driver and Fox analyst, along with Bill Stanley, a Virginia State Senator. And he will be in that 38 car here today. That'll be fun to watch.
It certainly will be fun to watch. And you have to remember, too, when you're keeping your eyes on that car, this is an interesting story. He was invited to Bowman Gray by the Myers family. He went there, ran the car, and then all of a sudden he got what we call the modified bug. And that modified bug in the PSR car is going to make him perhaps one of the big factors here today.
It's exciting to see Bobby Labonte and his opportunity to run in the Whelen Modified Tour today as you see him get strapped inside that 38 Virginia. Now, because of the rain delay from Friday night to today, it made for a very long day for Whelen Modified Tour regular Patrick Emmerling in the 07 car here today. He just got outside of his NASCAR Xfinity Series car, a car that he owns. He finished 29th in that event. He's getting strapped in right now to go racing in his modified at a racetrack that he's done well at, but now he's got a whole bunch of laps, 250 earlier today on this racetrack that none of the rest of the competition has.
Sure does, and of course he is a former winner on a super speedway. His first big break came at Bristol, and then after the race at Bristol, he followed it up with a win at the Stafford Motor Speedway, a prestigious visit in the Spring Sizzler. Jan Leedy is the crew chief. He knows modifieds like the back of his hand. He's one of the original competitors that has competed here at Richmond. 3/4 of a mile. This particular racetrack has all the right ingredients, Joe, and one of those key ingredients is the fact that turns 1 and 4 have a larger radius than turns 2 and 3. That's a tight radius there. And this is what Eddie Flemke Jr. referred to as a finesse track. If you really push the car too hard and take it in too deep, you will not be able to save those tires. And Joe, how important is tires today?
This is a racetrack that's going to require you to be strong on tires. You've got to have a very good balance in your race car. It's an abrasive track, and that means that you've got 6 tires on pit road that you can change and put on your race car throughout the event. That's a lot of tires for a 150-lap race for the modifieds, but they are going to need every single one of them. There you see the scuffs on the left side of your screen. You see those brand new Hoosier tires on the right side of the screen. They are sized up and ready to go, and the crew chiefs will have to make the call on when they take those tires and what adjustments they put into these race cars for the long haul today.
And remember, these competitors did have an opportunity to set their skills in practice. But then the conditions have completely changed here. There is no question about that. As you looked at the cars yesterday, the rains came, and they came quick, and they came heavy. They made every attempt to get the racing surface dry, and those cars were sitting there under their covers. NASCAR, under the reins of Jimmy Wilson, told the competitors and their crew chiefs and car owners they could not touch those race cars. The pit area will open up at 12 o'clock today, so there is a little bit of uncertainty. There is not a lot of time that these competitors have had to prepare, so it's going to be based on history, the young versus the old, the smart and the foolish.
They do have a little bit of adjustments that NASCAR allows them to make when they have an impound race like this. But Ben, you're right, it's not a lot. They cannot jack the car up. They cannot remove any of the body panels, the hood. But they could make a shock adjustment along the collar of the shock, but it has to be the same shock they had for qualifying. Air pressure adjustment, spring rubber. There's a lot of tools that they have in their toolkit to make adjustments for the weather and the different track conditions. Remember, we were looking to race on a Friday night under cooler conditions today. Partly sunny skies, 75 degrees, sun beating on the racetrack, the Xfinity Series cars before that. And now these drivers have to work with those adjustments. So it's going to be interesting to see over the first 20 to 25 laps to see who hit it right and who starts to struggle with the changed conditions.
And remember, the division that just competed on the racetrack runs on the Goodyear tire brand. The conditions of the racetrack was different for them. They had no practice at all, but they got off to a tremendous start. We were talking about that, Joe, how good they did. They settled in. It worked out for them. But now we go from one brand of rubber, one compound of rubber, to a completely different rubber. And, of course, traditionally, those watching that have never seen the modifieds, a much wider stance on the tires themselves. They are sticky. They are like gumballs. They do the magic. And, of course, these cars are like Indy cars. They're exotic looking, and they weigh 2,600 pounds. And, of course, the big story, I think, going into this event as well, and there's so many side stories, is starting way back in the 16th position is the defending champion, John McKennedy. And that is kind of a surprise to us because there's been a lot going on with that team, as you had researched earlier yesterday.
Well, they have upgraded their entire fleet of equipment. At the end of last year, they won the championship, yes, but they only won one race, and that was at the Claremont Speedway up in New Hampshire. And they said if we are going to compete with the top teams in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, the second year Tim Lapine is the team owner of that machine. He said, I've got to invest fully, and they went all out. Brand new race cars, brand new crew members. They supported with new crew from other groups. They even got a brand new truck and trailer for their operation, 100% upgraded, so that way they can get ready to go and be ready for this 2023 season. Now, they made an adjustment when we go to the starting lineup later. John McKennedy is going to have to drop to the rear because he made an unapproved adjustment for NASCAR, so we'll see how that develops.
And remember the credentials of John McKennedy. He's a former IMSA Modified champion of the MRS Series. He knows what he's doing. He works on race cars full time. He's got a great team and a great owner. And then you had Danny Grasso, who used to be associated with the Dave Zapienza team. He's doing tires. That guy is sharp. He's always been sharp. He's going to be a key ingredient in tire strategy for that team. Will they be able to get to the front? When you're the champion, it doesn't sound like an amazing accomplishment, does it?
Well, I think if anything else, John McKennedy is a driver that is hands-on. You'll find him. You go back at that race at Claremont that he won last year. He was underneath the car. He was making adjustments.
He'll throw anything at it.
And he will, but he's doing that work right before he goes out onto the racetrack. I think having another group of people around him that takes a little bit of pressure off him having to turn the wrenches all the time will only help him to focus on driving and continue to just be the champion driver that he is across, as you mentioned, all disciplines of racing.
And you look at the back end of that race machine, he memorializes his dad, who was instrumental in his racing career over the years as well. Talk about family situations. One of the great stories to come out surrounds a very familiar number. That is the color yellow and the number V4. It's not the story that you might think, because in this case, a driver returns to the competition, but his wife did the negotiating with Bob Garbarino, and that's not easy. Trust me, I've negotiated with Bob. He's a great man, and they purchase a race car to go racing, and it's a car that has a lot of history, as you well know, Joe.
Yeah, and that is the legendary V4. Tim Conley will be behind the wheel of that car here today, returning to the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour as Tim Conley, a 9-time winner in the series. And because it's been so long, since 21 was the first time the NASCAR Whelen Modified returned to the Richmond Raceway, he's actually got 6 starts in the track here. He's the most experienced driver racing at Richmond, but he hasn't been around the tour for some time.
Isn't that crazy? And he's an outstanding athlete as well. So there's so many different stories. There is the Florida Connection car number 3, that is Brian Narducci. That's another one of those Cinderella stories. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. Vanetta Narducci, this was her nephew. She was always so proud of him, and she'd be proud and is proud watching in the heavens from above for today's event.
Another driver making his debut in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, Brian Narducci, driving the Bowler Racing number 3 modified here this afternoon. Ben, the engines have come to life for the Virginia is for Racing Lovers 150 here at the Richmond Raceway. We are just moments away from seeing these cars roll off pit lane and getting underway in today's 150-lap event.
There's no question about it. There's nothing like the sound of a modified. When they fire up those engines, it makes the ground beneath your feet shake, and it is something that'll start your heart pounding. This field is a spectacular field. No matter where you go through the lineup, 6-time champion, car number 7, Mayhew Tools for the Tommy Baldwin race car. You can see the 7 pulling away in that 3rd row to the outside. The Toyota pace car picks up the field, and they are heading to the battlefield. Today, it is Richmond Speedway.
A beautiful day here in Richmond. Again, 75 degrees, a pretty stiff breeze here at the racetrack. All the storms that have been in the area over the past couple of days moving around, but it is a 25 or 75 degree day. A pretty stiff wind, partly cloudy up in the sky, and the colors of the NASCAR Whelen Modified make their way up out of the racetrack in turn 2. Let's go ahead and walk you through the starting lineup for today's Virginia is for Racing Lovers 150. Earning his first career Mayhew Tool pole in his 22nd start, Austin Beers out of Pennsylvania will lead the field around. The defending race winner, Justin Bonsignor, will start on the outside of row 1. Brian Narducci outside of row number 2. He'll make his first career start. And Bobby Labonte, the 2000 NASCAR Cup Series champion and NASCAR Hall of Famer, starts 8th.
Then we go back to Ryan Newman, starting in the 11th starting position with car number 39. Eric Goodale, he won't be a surprise in this one. He'll start in the 13th position with the number 58, the Goodies Motorsport car. And then it will be John McKennedy, 16th on the grid, the Middlesex Racing car. And that, of course, will be among the top 10 cars, with Kyle Ebersol starting with position number 19 with car number 5.
Starting 21st today, Dave Zapienza got his first top 10 in over a year at New Smyrna Speedway. Max McLaughlin is back. He led laps in this race a year ago, a part-time runner. He's focused on the dirt circuit, but he's back behind the wheel of Gary Putnam's number 77 modified. Starting deep in the field, back at 28th position, Matt Hirschman. He's got a lot of work to do after not taking any practice laps here today. And with a right front tire that went flat during qualifying, Justin Brown will start in the 29th position here today. A couple of cars will move to the rear for unapproved adjustments. The 79 of John McKennedy, along with the 46 of Justin Brown, Matt Hirschman, Corey DiMatteo all go to the rear, and Ryan Newman had to withdraw from the event because of another conflict due to the day being pushed one day further.
He certainly has, and we should mention and point out also very, very quickly that the Corey DiMatteo car, it had a problem with the carburetor. That's the reason that it is further back in the field as well. That's the JJ VC prepared automobile as well. A look at the guy in the outside of the front row will tell you pretty much the story, of course, as we are about ready to get him fired up.
Now, making his NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour debut here today is Brian Narducci. Brian's not only a two-time national champion in NASCAR's weekly series in the Division III category, he's got multiple modified wins at his local short track, but he also has cerebral palsy. But it doesn't slow him down one bit. He's a talent that is proven he can get inside new race cars and new series and be competitive right out of the gate. Brian Narducci today will start in the 4th position.
And starting in that 4th position directly behind him, 6-time champion, the Mayhew machine, of course, whole different deal. Tommy Baldwin, they put that team together. In the beginning, Baldwin said, I wasn't sure if we were going to have the chemistry. Chemistry, they had all the ingredients and then some. And there you see the 7 New York, a perfect example of the history that surrounds. And you know, you look back, Joe, and it was Mr. Sawyer that owned this facility, that was a close personal friend and a sponsor of Tom Baldwin Sr. This is a big day for this team. Tommy Baldwin Jr. and Doug Colby would like nothing better than to take down this victory.
Doug Colby said earlier, he said, you know what, I need a car that is stable and smooth when I go back under the green flag and we get this race underway. That's what he's looking for as he rolls out of the 6th position. But this isn't a racetrack that he's had a ton of success at, and he's got very limited starts here at Richmond Raceway, but he's off to a good start with qualifying. Ben, let's take a look at the race analysis for today's event. 150 laps in the Virginia is for Racing Lovers 150. There'll be 3 pit stops that these cars can take today. One will be for fuel. They'll have 6 change tires on pit road. They will do 2 pit stops with 3 tires each as the race goes on. It's a 3/4 mile D-shaped oval, 75 degrees today, partly cloudy here in Richmond, Virginia, and it is going to be a barn burner for sure. Some of the keys to the race today: tires, tires, tires is the name of the game. You've got to have a good rhythm to your laps here in Richmond, and you want to make sure that your car is strong and powerful at the exit of turn 4, because that is where you can carry a lot of speed and make some ground passing cars.
Oh, Joe, all of a sudden we've already got a problem. It is the number 82, the Danny Watts owned car for Craig Lutz. It's an LFR car and the Horton Avenue Materials car. We saw some smoke coming off the left rear, and as you look real close at it, if you can get a shot at it, but right now it's time to go racing as the field is ready, and there you can see the 82 looking to head to pit road as they head off turn number 4. We are green and racing at Richmond, modified style.
For the first time in his career, Austin Beers leads the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour into turn number 1. He'll take sole possession of the race lead. The battle is on now for second. Justin Bunsenor to the outside. Patrick Emmerling trying to make a move to the bottom.
No question about it. Meanwhile, Narducci is stuck in the upper groove. Car number 3, it drifts back to about the 5th position. Holding on there, but a strong point at the front of the field. It is still Austin Beers in command of the event. No surprises there. Look a little further back in the field. They're side by side, Joe, and doubled up, but the outside lane seems to be the quickest way.
That's Bobby Labonte, who was working the outside of Andrew Krause. Up front once again, here is Tommy Catalano. Catalano had a great race here last year, was 11 laps away from getting his first NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour victory. Justin Bonsignor won the race, but Catalano back up front again. He challenges for third to the inside of Patrick Emmerling.
They're kind of neighbors from the same region of the country, upstate New York. He makes the move to the inside. In practice, he had a car that was evil, Catalano, but he was able to make adjustments. He surprised everybody with a great run in time trials. Now they set kind of single file. Doug Colby setting back in the 6th spot. Labonte is moving forward with that number 38 car, Joe, and Andrew Kraus is now among the top 8. There's the battle.
Narducci here on the move. He looks to the inside of Emmerling as they come across the line. Now, with the NASCAR Xfinity Series cars on track beforehand, many of the teams thought that the first 20 to 25 laps with this Hoosier rubber would be a little bit skatey, a little bit loose out on the track. So the drivers adapting to that. Narducci now trying to move back forward. This is a battle for the 4th spot to the inside, and the number 3 is Narducci. Emmerling, who just got out of his NASCAR Xfinity Series car, falls back to 5th.
While he does that, it is Doug Colby who tries to make the same move. The 6-time champion puts the Mayhew Tools car to the inside. 3 cars contending for position number 4. Narducci is there now, but for how long? Inside, going, gone. Here comes Colby. He now picks up a spot.
Boy, off turn 2 that time, Brian Narducci used up Patrick Emmerling. Emmerling had to roll out of the throttle. Narducci's car slid up the racetrack. Emmerling gave him room to get in there, but that was a pretty tight moment there for Brian Narducci in the 3. So Doug Colby now up to 5th. Now here comes Bobby Labonte. Labonte in the number 38 machine, the neon numerals, yellow car, running back there in the 8th position. He's trying to make his way forward as well. Here he comes, looking down to the inside into turn 1.
And he makes a nice bid for it with a great charge there. Will he be able to complete the mission? Now looking, here it is on the outside. Good move there. He clears, takes over the spot, but right there contending as well and looking right to the inside to try to take back that position. It is a strong battle, and Ronnie Silk. Now he's a gentleman that won the first stop, and he has Phil Moran creating the magic of that race car, and it is magical as usual. Now Moran has strategy. He's been here before, and he's done it with Doug Colby. Will that strategy work for Ronnie Silk? He's coming to the front, Joe.
Well, Ronnie Silk's a driver that is very good on long-run races. When you think of tire management, when you think of drivers that are good on large racetracks, he's always run very well at the mile, the Magic Mile up at Loudon, New Hampshire. So you'd expect Ronnie Silk to be good here, but the statistics don't show that. He was 19th here in 2021. Got a top 10 here last year. This is not his strongest track, but he looks good today.
He certainly does. And remember, he is the 2011 NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour champion. That car, the Blue Mountain Machine Future Homes car, has been very consistent and very stable. This guy's got so much talent. We talked about it, and he knows how to save and manage tires as well. Now, last year he was driving for the Stewart family in their race car. Good news that one of the owners, Kenny Stewart, and Kevin Stewart had some health issues. They're doing good, and they're watching their favorite driver, and you know who that is.
Absolutely, and he has done a really nice job over the years with that team, so we'll keep an eye on that. Here is Brian Narducci, and Narducci looks in the rearview mirror, and he's got the 7 New York of Doug Colby. Now, interestingly enough, Brian Narducci in other series has driven the 7 New York car, works with Tommy Baldwin. Who did Narducci call for advice coming into this race?
This guy.
Tommy Baldwin, right?
He sure did. And, you know, he is a 2-time national champion. You talk about what some people would consider that physical handicap that you mentioned. It is not for this young man. He comes from a great racing family. His grandfather, Jerry Pearl, legendary championship driver. His uncle, Jeff Pearl, and, of course, other family members that are all part of this racing operation. His mother is one of those individuals that eats, sleeps, and enjoys modified racing to the max. Great run for this driver. No surprises at all whatsoever in the early laps of the event. Looking a little further back in the field. Now, there's our leader. It is Justin Beers.
Austin Beers out in front. We're 14 laps into the Virginias for Racing Lovers 150 at Richmond Raceway. Gary McDonald on pit road.
McDonald, one of the independent runners. They are headed down on pit road, starting the event in 25th, the Lakeside Avenue landscaping car. And it does not appear that they're in any quick hurry to get that car back out in the competition. Let's go back up front to our leader, Austin Beers, and there is the 64 car. And, of course, very interesting combination. Ronnie Uhouse used to be the driver. He takes over as the crew chief. Sly Zabin, who is involved with the legendary Flamingo Motorsports team, is involved with that team. And the Flying Irishman, Murphy, is the owner of the car, and they are really pleased. Eric Beers is a champion in his own right. They are neighbors of the Hirschman family. Do you think they go over the fence and listen to some of the stories?
As a great person to listen to. Caution is out on the racetrack. Our first caution of the day with 17 laps complete. There's a 20 car of Eddie McCarthy who's down on pit road. So 17 laps into the Virginias for Racing Lovers 150. And the caution flag is out here at Richmond Raceway. The crew trying to push that 20 car away for Eddie McCarthy. So far, it has been all Austin Beers out in front, and that is such a good story for Austin Beers and the entire gang to be able to have such a strong run in the early stages. He was so confident that they have had throughout the race so far, the season that they've had to start with. Confidence goes such a long way for everybody when you're driving a race car, and that's true for Austin Beers.
This kid is young, but when you talk to him, he actually acts way beyond his years. His dad, his grandfather were all involved. There is the Danny Watts race car, the 82, down on pit road of Craig Lutz. We noticed that the number 20 of Eddie McCarthy, they pushed it behind the wall. Talk about no luck at all for the McCarthy group. On their way to this race, their truck broke down, and they had to rent a U-Haul to get here, but they still made it, and guess what? There is, well, not a good day at all for that team. Once again, is we see now the field single file information. Catalano has performed some magic and worked his way up to the second spot. You know, Tommy Catalano is also dipping into running a super late model these days as well. So that family is the FX Capera Catalano Motorsports machine. Dave Troy and Dave Catalano, the dad, does a lot of work there. And you can see that particular car. We've seen that car, Joe, come so close to winning so many times with that young man. But he's got the horseshoe under the seat today, he told me. Yeah. So today could be the day.
Yeah, he was very, very good here last year. Came 11 laps away from winning his first Whelen Modified Tour event. I was watching that car as he was making his way off turn number 2. His car is stepping out sideways. You know he's really driving it pretty aggressive, and he's trying to keep the tires under him because that was one thing that hurt him in the late run last year. Tommy Catalano, he's always been good at big tracks like this, too. And this team has not been afraid to go forward and put some effort into testing. They actually went down to New Smyrna Speedway at the start of the season to test a whole new car and a whole new combination, but they have changed their approach this season, and so far in a couple of races, it has certainly panned out. Now, Ben, one thing that's pretty interesting here is we celebrate the 75th year of NASCAR, and we highlighted it at the start of the show. There's a couple of very famous modifieds in the field, and one of them is a yellow V4 that's driven by Tim Conley. Now, for many, many years, we know that yellow V4 was always a Bob Garbarino-owned team.
Yep, referred to as the Mystic Missile.
The Mystic Missile, as always, right? And that number 4 car has so much history here in the sport of the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, but it's back in modified competition for the first time since 2016.
You know, the last time a driver sat behind the wheel of that car, when it was under the hands of Bob Garbarino, it was Jimmy Blewett. Blewett ran very strong with it. He had some great runs with it. It is a car that can get to the front. Remember, Conley is an athlete, very competitive. He was an outstanding football player in his younger days. So he goes to win. He doesn't play race for second or any of the above. Now, there is the Dan Lutz car the Craig Lutz car, the Danny Watts car, back behind the wall, car number 82. And there is the Conley number 4, and we told that great story earlier today.
Now, that V4 always came because you mentioned the Mystic Missile. Bob Garbarino was in the marina business.
Yes,
that
the
V4,
Mystic River Marina.
That's right. That V4 was a tribute to the Evinrude motors that he used to sell at his marina, and that is why it was always a legendary V4, the V4 Evinrude engine.
You talk about drivers that have driven for the Garbarino crew. Oh, down on pit road, car number 60, Matt Hirschman, is in the Elite Towing Baker Racing car. It looks like they're putting on fuels, and it looks like perhaps a rubber adjustment. Up front, they're working the steering from side to side.
So this is typical Matt Hirschman, right? Didn't have a lot of practice, got 17 green flag laps out into the racetrack, making a little bit of adjustment. He did the same thing at New Smyrna when the car wasn't right, but notice he took some fuel. That might be enough for them to get to the finish, but he's playing a strategy game from the drop of the green flag. He had nothing to lose. running at the back of the field. He had gotten up to 23rd or so on the racetrack. He now has the ability to get some adjustments and work his way up through the field. A lot of pit stops still left to go, and Matt Hirschman is one of the best at being prepared for any situation, whether he's raced here or not.
Well, we've talked about it so many times. He has that book. He calls it the Bible. He looks through it. He writes down. He documents everything. He is a thinker. When he is working on his race car or watching cars run, he studies every little detail to get the job done. And he has patience. And patience is something that you need here at Richmond.
Well, while we have a moment here, 128 laps to go in the Virginias for Racing Lovers 150 at the Richmond Raceway. We'll be back momentarily with more of the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour from Richmond. Back here at the Richmond Raceway, it's race number 2 for the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, the Virginias for Racing Lovers 150. Great to have you with us here this afternoon. I'm Joe Koss alongside Ben Dodge. Ben, delayed one day for rain, but it hasn't impacted. We got a great crowd on hand here today. And the young Austin Beers out in front leading the way here. He has led from the drop of the green flag.
He certainly has. It was worth the wait. The fans, they're anticipating and watching it. And I think we haven't even seen the cherry on top of the sundae in this one yet, because we've got a long way to go. And you have to look a little bit further back currently. As you see, there is our leader, which is Austin Beers. Directly behind him, Catalano. Great story there. But then we get into some of the big meat in the sandwich. It is the number 51, the Ryan Stone prepared car. And that, of course, Justin Bonsignore. We know what he's done at this track. They had a terrible season. Ryan Stone would admit it. Mechanical problems, not the fault of setup or anything else. So they're hoping to change all of that this year as well.
They had several wins last year. They were still in the hunt for the title at the end, but by their standards, it was the ups and downs that killed him. And I know as a crew chief, Ryan Stone prepares so diligently with his race car and trying to make that work. Now his cousin, Kyle Bonsignore in the 22, always an interesting story, and you might have caught the piece on Flow Racing where he actually runs a tool truck out of Illinois, and that's where
correct.
he is based. And for
crazy.
years, he has flown back and forth from Illinois, so he gets the furthest towed award, at least most flight award for fly miles for Kyle Bonsignore in that 22 car. He's been pretty good throughout this Richmond Raceway track and led laps in the early stages of last race. Kyle Bonsignore in that 22, he's been quiet so far today. We've seen 17 green flag laps. He currently sits 13th in the running order.
You know, and that race car was a new race car prepared by Cam McDermott. Now, Cam McDermott, he's also one of those entrepreneur crew chiefs. He prepares Woody Pitcat's race car for the Tri-Track Series. They've had tremendous amount of success. That was the team in the car to beat last season. So we're keeping our eyes on this. You see on the back end of the car, Joe, it says Charlou. That is for Charles Lewandowski. He was a young man that came to the Stafford Motor Speedway, lived in Stafford, inspired at one point to be an announcer, and he was a pretty good one. I have to watch my job here. I'm old. And then all of a sudden, he went down south, and he has been a key ingredient and a big supporter of this young man as well.
And ironically enough, where did Kyle Bonsignore get his very first Whelen Modified Tour victory?
You got it.
Came in the fall final at Stafford Speedway. And so a lot of history that comes full swing for the driver of number 22, Kyle Bonsignore. If you're just joining us, we are under the first caution of the event, and it came out for fluid that was put down along the front straightaway for the 20 car of Eddie McCarthy. That's brought us under the caution. We've had a couple of cars on and off pit road. Gary McDonald came down pit road under green flag conditions. His car was serviced. He ended up back out onto the racetrack, but he is now 7 laps down. We also saw the 60 car, there's 20 there, of Eddie McCarthy and the problems that they had putting him out of this race. We also saw Matt Hirschman, just before that commercial break, come down pit road and get some adjustments and fuel on their race car, some of the only cars to come in for service so far today.
That's right. And we also saw the Danny Watts car for Craig Lutz. They have had no luck at all. It looks like, you know what's happening now, Joe, single file, and they're heading towards pit road. This is going to work to the advantage, perhaps, to the number 60 car. Let's see what their strategy is for Matt Hirschman. Remember, he pitted very early when this caution came out.
Yeah, he took fuel then. We'll see what they can do. Now, they cannot take fuel and tires on the same spot. So you see some of the teams coming down pit road are coming in and getting that fuel stop out of the way now. 124 laps to go. They should have enough fuel to get the rest of the way. Now, Matt Hirschman did come down pit road with the rest of the field, so he's not going to gain that track position, but we will likely just see fuel only for these race cars. Now, they've got a couple of sets of tires that they can take on pit road, but they're not going to take them, at least on this round of pit stop.
And look what just happened. The Catalano machine will be the first car to head out of pit road. It looks like the second car is going to be the 64 of Austin Beers, and then directly behind that, coming off from pit road as well, is we're looking now. We've got 3 cars left on pit road, and Joe, the final car is about to lose pit road, and we are about ready to, get them fired back up again. Take a look at the field as they're coming at us, and the cars that stayed out, Joe, is the story in this one, and let's see if we can find where Matt Hirschman came back out.
So we'll reset the field when they come back around the next time by. But we do know that the 54 car was quick on pit road, so he will take over the race lead. Austin Beers lost a spot. He came out second. And then it was Doug Kobe, Ronnie Silk, Justin Bonsignor, and I think it was John McKennedy, the next car to come out onto the racetrack when they get back under the green flag. Walt Sutcliffe in the 78 machine. He'll get the lineup here along the front row. The lights are out on top of the Toyota Camry pace car. Now remember, here in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, there is no choose rule, so the drivers will line up based on where they start from the second row on back. The race leader can pick whether he wants the inside or outside row, but everybody else, it's odds on the inside and evens on the outside.
Yes, you have to keep your eye. Look at where Doug Kobe is to the inside of that second row, and then outside is the Phil Moran prepared car. Of course, that is Ronnie Silk. So we're going to reset the field as we're about ready to get them fired back up.
Getting ready for the restart here. 123 laps to go in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. Virginia is for racing lovers. 150, the race leader after a round of pit stops. Now Tommy Catalano out in front. Austin Beers, who had led the entire distance so far before the caution flag, will restart on the outside of front row. The pace car is in. We're ready to get back underway here in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour.
They come rumbling off turn number 4. They are side by side as they work their magic to the line. It is so close to call, but there's no question about it. By inches, it is Catalano. But is Eric Beers going to give up? No, he keeps digging in, Joe, hard in the upper lane.
Into that speedy dry up in the outside lane of the racetrack. They are wheel to wheel down the back straightaway into turn number 3. Catalano on the bottom. Both these drivers have not yet won a race, and it's the outside lane that'll prevail. Austin Beers around the top side takes over the race lead in turn 1.
He takes it over, and not only takes it over, but pulls away by a car lane. While that's been happening, Ronnie Silk tested the waters. He's back with the silver 16 in the 4th position. Meanwhile, it's Kobe to move in to take over the 3rd spot. Slicing and dicing going further back in the field, Joe, as we see Kyle Bonsignor trying to make the move as well.
John McKennedy is a driver that has picked up the most spots. He had to go to the back for unapproved adjustment. Started at the rear of the field. He has moved up to the 7th position as he flashes by in the center of your screen. A little bit deeper in the pack, Brian Narducci has fallen back after the pit stop. His car loose on the bottom as he battles underneath Kyle Ebersol.
Being on the bottom doesn't seem to be the place to be. The outside lane has got hooked up with those feel-good Hoosier tires on the cars, and now we see Ebersol to the outside. Car number 5. We haven't talked much about him. And meanwhile, we've got another caution coming out on the field.
Second caution of the day, this time for Tim Conley in the V4. His car slow along the front straightaway. So 32 laps in, second caution of the day. And again, brought out by Tim Conley. Is his car moving once again? You see possibly a little damage on that left side, left front tire there, that wheel wobbling just a bit as he comes down back through turns 3 and 4, able to continue on. So 118 laps to go here in Richmond. It's the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. Virginia is for racing lovers 150.
Well, once again, we've got one car left down on pit road. Interestingly enough, the second caution came out. It was a minor situation, or what appeared to be a minor situation. This is a big payday, too. There's over $120,000 in posted awards, and there's the 26 of McDonald. It has been in and out of pit road. He's one of the little guys in the field that has been to a lot of events, by the way, over the years. He's had 141 starts. So pretty impressive with all of that. Joe, there's still single file. Now, we know what happened on the last outing of the restart, and we saw the outside lane really get hitched up, but we saw that there was, well, in the upper groove, there was some speedy drive there, and it could have created a problem, but it did not. And what about the run for Austin Beers so far? He earned taking back that lead, by the way. It wasn't given to him. Tommy Catalano, both of those young drivers are looking for that prestigious first victory on the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour.
Well, Austin Beers had a very strong run in the outside lane of the racetrack, and that's where you'll see a lot of these modifieds run that middle groove through the turn. He had a very good draw off the corner, was able to take over that race lead. Very poised, very experienced Austin Beers. We talked about the confidence that he came in with this very event, and he is showing that today, that he is not going to allow the challenges that they had at New Smyrna to pull them back. Remember, the reason why they lost the opportunity to run for the win at New Smyrna was both of their pit impact guns changing the tires on the pit stop failed at the same time. They sent them back to the shop, they got them repaired, and back in for this race. Now, we haven't seen tire changes yet, but I'm sure that's going to be on their mind when they come down pit road.
Certainly is. You know, I'm looking down through our restart lineup, and Corey DiMatteo, car number 17, started way back in the 23rd position. That's the Michelle and Mike Davini car, and then Extreme Motorsports listed among the sponsors. And now down on pit road, we've got the Fortin car number 34. Looks like a stop for fuel. Checked right side, jacked it up, made an adjustment, and guess who's back on pit road?
And he's getting tires this time. So Matt Hirschman comes in, one of the first cars to come in and take tires.
Yep.
Remember, he's going to try to find a way to gain some track position. Ken Hagee also leaving in the 18 car, but that 60 car of Matt Hirschman coming down pit road, getting the opportunity to put some tires on. Now remember, this is a new team for Matt Hirschman.
Completely new.
First start in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. The crew, not a crew that's going to have a lot of experience doing live pit stops. So if you're them and you're trying to play a strategy game, come down pit road when there's no pressure on how quick your pit stop is. Get that tire out of the way. And then Matt Hirschman, you know what he's good at? Big money, Matt, saving tires. And
yes,
if there's anybody that can do it the best, you all point to Matt Hirschman as being the driver who can do that.
He certainly is one of those drivers that is able to do it, and there are very few at times that can get to the front of this field. Ronnie Silk is setting back in the 4th spot before we went to the yellow. Doug Colby is in 3rd, Justin Bonsignor. Anthony Cecily, we haven't talked much about him. He has moved the number 19 car up into the 6th position. Currently, they got off to a tough start at New Smyrna. Had a good run going for themselves as well. As it looks like we're going to reset the field. And, Joe, what do you think is going to happen at the point in this one?
Austin Beers back out in front as we get ready to go back under the green flag. He'll take the outside lane as a race leader for the restart. Tommy Catalano on the bottom. Row 2, two former champions. Doug Colby to the bottom, and the 16 car, the New Smyrna Speedway winner, and Ronnie Silk to the outside of row number 2. The pace car is in, getting ready to turn them loose. It'll be 114 laps to go when we get back under the green flag here in the Virginia is for Racing Lovers 150. For the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, Austin Beers around the outside lane. He fires, and he brings Ronnie Silk right along with him in turn 1.
He made it look easy, but just as easy as it was for him to take the lead, Ronnie Silk moved into 2nd. Now there is a side-by-side battle for the third and fourth and fifth position. Meanwhile, Catalano back into third, kind of in the comfort zone there as they come back off turn 4.
It's Anthony Cecily who takes over the fourth position over Doug Kobe around the outside lane. So Anthony Cecily in the Stephen Kopchik prepared machine. Number 19, a brand new race car there in the fourth spot. Nearly got the outside wall off turn number 2, and Anthony Cecily now up the racetrack and off the groove. Cecily in trouble in turns 3 and 4 as he caught the outside wall at the exit of turn number 2, and he cut a tire down, and the car just went straight into turn 3, and heartbreak for that team who was strong and moved inside the top 5 for Anthony Cecily.
Heartbreaking situation. He was right there, contending very strong. The Wanted construction car, as we said, Stephen Kopsik, one of the young crew chiefs. The Harry Hugh Pullett, number 19. They had a good run at New Smyrna in the first stop.
Here's a
and
replay.
Now let's take a look at it and see if we can see exactly.
It was right
what
there
happened.
on the right-hand side of the screen when he caught the outside wall off turn 2. It cut the tire down.
And once the tire went down, it was over with. The wall became a magnet and literally sucked car number 19 right up into the wall, and that's kind of a heartbreaker. Let's hope they can get that back.
Right side of your frame, you'll see it right here as he goes down into turn 3. The tire was down. Damage was already made for a pretty good bit of contact off turn 2, and he was racing with Doug Kobe directly ahead of him, and the car just took off. Obviously nowhere to go. Anthony Cecily still waiting to climb out of that number 19 car. So much optimism around him at the start of his season. He won an indoor race in his home state, New Jersey, down in Atlantic City. That's a big deal up in the Northeast in the month of January. He had a top 5 run at New Smyrna Speedway. Midway through Speed Week, Stephen Kopchik said, I'm going home. I'm going to build the race car that we need to be able to run at Richmond in the rest of the season. It was this car, a brand new car, and he had raced his way inside the top 5 after starting 10th here today for Anthony Cecily. But unfortunately, a little too aggressive that time off turn number 2 is what will cost him an opportunity to run for the win.
You know, when he first sat behind the Kopsik prepared race car, he said, I've driven a lot of race cars, but I have never driven a car that handled this good and reacted to the way that I want a car to react. There he is taking that long, dejected walk to the safety services crew to be checked over, and what a heartbreaker for him. I think we're going to see big things out of him and Stephen Kopsik this year on the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, as this is only the second race. Hard to believe. And you know, Joe, we haven't really talked about the similarities. First race, half mile, one of the fastest half miles in the country. Second race, 3/4 mile. Guess what? One of the fastest tracks in the country.
It is, and you've got very different racetracks. High banks, half mile at New Smyrna Speedway. You've got wide open, arcing turns, D-shaped oval here at Richmond, but there's a common theme between the two of them is that you've got to conserve your tires, and that's something that's pretty important. Now, the next race we go in early May is completely different.
The opposite.
One of the smallest tracks, now high banked, one of the smallest tracks up in Winchester, New Hampshire. It's the Monadnock Speedway.
Great facility. If you haven't been there, you got to go see this. It's a traditional bull ring. Josh Venat and his production company putting it together, and we've got
Justin
down on pit
Bonsignor
road.
on pit road.
Justin Bonsignor, we talked about that terrible luck from a year ago. Has it returned or not? Coastal Fiber is the new name on the Massa car this season, and this was definitely a surprise to see. And now we have the 51 is in. Let's see what it's going to be here. Looks like.
Well, I think you saw Matt Hirschman come on down pit road and get
agree.
tires, and they said, you know what, why don't we go ahead and get our tires done now as well? I mean, Justin Bonsignor was inside the top 10, but I don't know if he had the car that he wanted to have him come down pit road. It seems to make sense. We've got 41 laps in. Also in on pit road is Patrick Emmerling. He's going to take the opportunity to get fuel for his car, but he probably does not want to give up a ton of track position. And even though Matt Hirschman hasn't shown a tremendous amount of strength so far, with those new tires, he has raced up to the 18th position, right? Remember that. So he has picked up quite a few spots with those new tires, and I think that 51 of Ryan Stone, he's a pretty crafty crew chief. He's paying attention to that, and he knows that he wants to stay pace with a guy like that.
He certainly is. He's picked up 10 positions on the racetrack. Remember, this team was also the first team to stop for a splash of fuel as well. So they're prepared, and maybe their strategy, they might be new, but it might be the strategy that could pull this off.
under the third caution of the day here in Richmond. We'll have more of the Virginias for Racing Lovers 150 in a moment.
We're back at the Richmond Speedway with one to go on the Whelen Modified Tour. And it looks like Austin Beers has made his selection again, Joe, and that is on the outside. But a different player on the inside this time, Ronnie Silk. Now, on the last restart, Joe, you remember what happened. It was Beers that pulled away, but Silk that followed, and Catalana got caught in the lower lane.
Yeah, the outside lane tended to be good on the restarts. Austin Beers is coming up through the gears pretty efficiently in that 64 car. He's had the dominant car all day long. This time he looks in the rear view mirror. He's got Doug Kobe lining up behind him, getting ready to turn him loose here once again. We'll have 106 laps to go when the green flag comes out. Austin Beers, the race leader. He has led just about the entire way so far today. We're ready to turn him loose here one more time in Richmond.
Here they come. The green is out. Battle at the point, evenly matched. They cross the stripe down into turn number one. Outside is Racy again and Austin Beers. And who's going to be the tail that wags that dog? It is Doug Kobe with the number 7 New York quickly moving into second.
Moving through the pack, you see Bobby Labonte battling a little bit deeper in the pack, and that yellow number 38, he's moving to the inside, just outside the top 5. Back into turn number 1, Austin Beers out in front. Outside, here is Bobby Labonte working to the inside of Andrew Krause in turn 1.
Andrew Krause kind of worked quietly into the top 6. Now he is being pressured by one of the best, and that is Bobby Labonte. Labonte showing his stuff. Now Narducci is pinned to the bottom of the racetrack, as now Krause is there on the outside with the orange and black number 24.
Narducci had been on pit road with everybody else, and he had fallen back under that green flag run, but it seems as though his car has come back to life. You see those left side tires get on that yellow paint to the bottom. It upset his modified just a little bit, and that allows some of the cars to work to his outside and go by him.
As that's been happening, moving back up to the front, Doug Kobe in the second spot. Silk is pressuring him to try to take it back. It just doesn't happen. He settles back into line as well. Meanwhile, look a little further back in the outside lane. We see a situation that is starting to develop there again. Here comes the 77 this time. That's Max McLaughlin.
And McLaughlin started at the back of the pack as well. He was in with some of the rookie contenders in the race, both Corey DiMatteo in the 17 and Brian Narducci. Up front, Ronnie Silk muscles his way back by Doug Kobe. Now here's Kyle Bonsignor in the 22. He looks down to the inside of Tommy Catalano in turn 3.
They're side by side as they rumble off the turn. They almost touch. This time it's Catalano. That forces Kyle Bonsignor back a spot, and right there coming with him, no surprise at all, it is Labonte with car number 38.
Bobby Labonte now moves in to the 5th position. He had quite a few NASCAR Cup Series victory, but none of them came here at Richmond. A couple of wins at Martinsville, but the 2000 NASCAR Cup Series champion having a pretty good day so far inside the top 5. Now deeper in the field, Eric Goodale, not a driver we've talked about too much today, in the 58 car. He's back running a little bit deeper in the field, 8th, as he's battling with Corey DiMatteo, who loses it, goes way wide in turns 3 and 4, and Max McLaughlin in the 77.
You know, getting back to Eric Goodale, remember he has won at Bristol, Martinsville, Stafford, and Riverhead. Those are all serious modified racetracks. just like this one. He's not done yet in the GAF machine. And Corey DiMatteo, you know, he was working. This was put together in the 11th hour, as we said before. Mike Davini and his wife, Michelle. Remember when Corey LaJoie won with that race car, with a deal that was put together by Robbie Fuller that everybody said might not work? Well, it did.
That was at Martinsville at the end of last year. Corey was supposed to drive this race car, had a conflict. Then it was another driver that was supposed to slide in this car. They couldn't make the call. Corey DiMatteo was the third-string driver for the 77 car. He's making his debut, and he's got this car up to the 8th position so far, and he's bringing Max McLaughlin right along with him. Max McLaughlin driving the Gary Putnam modified. Mike Curb involved in this 77 as well. Those are drivers, those are two folks that have been around the sport for a long time, and Gary Putnam has been a long-time modified driver and crew member through his career.
He certainly has. He lives in my hometown, Vernon, Connecticut, where he started out as a youngster. The first race team that he worked with was the Pastriac race team. He said, I learned so much, and I developed a career. He is really one of the nice guys in this field. Now, keep your eyes on this battle going on right here. Again, that's the battle for the 4th position. Tommy Catalano in the upper groove, but look out, Labonte moved forward, and all of a sudden, Max McLaughlin, he's coming on, and he's running a completely different line, Joe. He's running the inside instead of working magic on the outside. Trouble for Conley again.
Trying to make that car down to pit road along the bottom. We'll see if he can get that onto pit road before a caution flag comes out. 58, Eric Goodale in a battle here, and the caution does indeed come out, and it'll be the 4th of the day, 56 laps into the race, and the caution for Tim Conley, as there's a bit of smoke coming out the right side of his machine. Could not quite get it all the way around turns 3 and 4 and off the racetrack, and that's the reason for our caution here today. 94 laps to go, and the Virginia is for racing. Lovers 150 from Richmond Raceway. So Conley will get a little bit of help from the push truck and the wrecker to get him off the racetrack, but a very impressive drive by Max McLaughlin, considering where he started in the field back in the 22nd position. His car rolling forward very, very quickly, and Gary Putnam tuning the wrenches on this race car.
You know, it's very interesting. When I talked with Gary Putnam, he told me, he says, Max has been focusing on the dirt program. And Joe, if you know anything about dirt racing, it is completely a different breed of animal. You do not run qualifying heats. You do not run a lot of practice laps or any of the above. You get in, you have to be spot on, and it is not easy. We've seen a lot of drivers make the transition, but a lot of drivers have struggled in the process as well. And there is the Tim Conley race car. Incidentally, Conley has had his share of success. He has 9 Whelen Modified Tour wins, to his credit, over the years, and he set out for quite some time, and he is really thrilled and pumped up to be back in racing in this series. There is no question about that.
So working the caution here, 92 laps to go. They're looking under the air cleaner and the carburetor, so by judging by that smoke and a little bit of fluid that's hanging off the right side of that exhaust pipe, Tim Conley, some motor problems on that V4, a tough break with the history and the story of that car. Hopefully we'll see him a little bit further on. Former college football athlete at Ithaca.
And outstanding.
And an outstanding race car driver as well that had been around the tour for a long time. And we didn't mention it earlier, but he did drive this race car in the late 90s.
Yes,
and 7 of his career wins came in that race car. So there's always been a connection for him in his modified career.
There certainly has been. You know, we should also point out, while we have this caution situation, that a lot of people would compare this particular racetrack to other racetracks that might include New Hampshire International or Bristol or tracks of that nature and type. But, Joe, we were able to research before. There is a different strategy. There's what they use and what they don't use that'll make a difference. And the Whelen Modified Tour has what they call restrictor plates. Joe, tell us about this race.
Well, a lot of the setup that they have here in this race is actually tied closer to like a Thompson Speedway type race. And this racetrack, although it's one of the larger on the series, it's actually quite a bit different and really doesn't compare in any way to New Hampshire. They don't really have the draft come into play like they do at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. They handle this racetrack a lot different. I mean, there's actually a lot more banking here. You know, New Hampshire's got 5 to 7 degrees of progressive banking. Here it's 14 degrees of banking at the Richmond Raceway. So a lot of difference, even though it's big. I think the biggest similarity between them is the fact that this is part of one of 3 races on the schedule this year that's a companion weekend for the NASCAR National Series, the NASCAR Cup Series and the NASCAR Xfinity Series. This race being one, the other being New Hampshire Motor Speedway in July, and then in October where we settle the championship at the Martinsville Speedway in the state of Virginia where we are here today.
Certainly do, and this is a very special facility. We'll tell you about the history of this facility, but right now it looks like we are still under caution. So let's go and take a look at a little bit of the history of this racetrack. Believe it or not, this originally was referred to as the Atlantic Rural Exposition Fairgrounds, and in 1946 it was a dirt track. But a gentleman by the name of Joe Weatherly, familiar name, in Cup competition back in those days, and Paul Sawyer decided that they were going to, well, bring this alive, and that's exactly what they did. They changed things, and it was in 1988 when it was reconfigured, and of course some great stories have come out of this, and both of those individuals were true modified fans. Paul Sawyer loved the modifieds. We talked earlier about his involvement with Tommy Baldwin Sr. He actually sponsored the cars as well. And, you know, we have seen this facility host some of the best modified races that there is. And when we look down through that list, we talked about 3-time winner Teddy Christopher won this event back in 1999. Joe, you pointed it out. Tony Hirschman, 2001. Todd Zegedy, 2002, and Ryan Preece in 2021. Ryan is not here today, and there's a reason for that.
Well, he's here. He's just not driving.
That's
he's in
right.
the NASCAR Cup Series, and actually at New Smyrna, he was actually giving a hand to Dave Zapienza. So while we have an opportunity here under the caution flag, pit road is still closed. We'll take an opportunity to step aside from Richmond and come back with more of the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour after this. Back here at Richmond Raceway, pit road is open and the cars are down on pit road. Austin Beers on the pit lane, looking to see if he can get 3 tires on his machine. The Tommy Baldwin-led crew for Doug Kobe on pit road as well. 3 tires for him. Ronnie Silk has been strong today in the 16. Eric Goodale on pit road. And work continues for the 64 of Austin Beers. This is a big moment for them. This cost them an opportunity to win at New Smyrna, was on pit road. We'll see who wins the race off pit road today.
Yes, it looks like they are able to make it out quick, and the gun does work. But the guy who was even quicker is the number 7 New York for Doug Kobe, the 6-time champion. He was able to get the job done in record time as well. And there is the Mayhew Tools machine, the Baldwin race car. And look at that speedy drive. Remember earlier, on the first caution, I think it was, Joe, we saw the effects of that speedy drive in the upper lane.
Yeah, off turn 2, everybody was getting a bit skatey as they came back under the green flag. So Doug Kobe, Tommy Baldwin, and his crew very, very quick and efficient here off of pit lane. They were able to get the job done. He picks up 1 spot on pit road. We'll wait for everything to cycle back around and see exactly where Austin Beers came out onto the racetrack to see how he stacked up. But he will lose some ground here as he goes from the race lead and falls back what appears to be 4 positions on pit road. So that team, at least they had a clean pit stop to be able to get them back out onto the racetrack. Remember, the team that you're dealing with there in the Doug Kobe team, this is a crew that's led by a former Daytona 500 champion, a former NASCAR Cup Series car owner. They know pit stops inside and out.
They certainly do, but you have to give credit to the team that is directly behind them, and that, of course, is the Ron Silk, number 16. Phil Moran, he knows his stuff. He knows modifieds, and he knows Doug Kobe, by the way. There is the Moran race car, the winner of event number 1, currently the leader in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour points going into this event. And Joe, you pointed it out that even though the 64 did not make it out as your first place car, he only lost 3 positions. So he's in the 4th spot roughly as they come back out of the racetrack at this time.
He's 4th as they lined up, but I think one of the challenges they had is there was a handful of cars that decided to stay out under that caution period. Max McLaughlin is now the race leader. Dave Zappienza second. Now, Justin Bonsignore had already come down pit road. He's up to 3rd. John McKennedy, Tyler Ripkema, Matt Hirschman will start in the top 6. Doug Kobe won the race off of pit road, but he will restart the race from the 7th position on the inside of row number 4. So a new front row out in front. We knew that the strategy game was going to come part of it. Now it's come full circle, and remember, they still have another round of tires that they can go back and get before we get back to the finish. So we'll have a green flag here. They'll see 85 laps to go when they come across the line to see the green flag. The race leader is Max McLaughlin in the 77. He will take the outside lane on the restart.
Dave Zappienza will be starting on the inside. Zappienza had a great run at New Smyrna as well. He is 57 years young. That's how he likes to refer it. He loves modified racing. Here they come off turn number 4. Max McLaughlin has come from way in the back in the 22nd position. He is on the upper groove. Slips up just a bit, trying to hold on in the upper lane, but Dave Zappienza, and look out, here comes Justin Bonsignore working the inside, and guess who's there on the outside?
That's John McKennedy, the defending series champion in the 79. He draws alongside Justin Bonsignore as they come across the line. The top 2 get away. It's Max McLaughlin and Dave Zappienza, and Bonsignore slides in underneath and takes over the 3rd spot.
Bonsignore likes that inside lane. He now sets his sights, pulls it back in the line, looking at Dave Zappienza. Here he comes. Bonsignore making his presence known on the bottom of the racetrack. Right there behind him is Ronnie Silk, and we've got them 2 and 3 wide as they head back further in the pack.
Everybody's got new Hoosier tires, and they are trying to use every bit of it. Use all that grip while they can, including the 16 of Ronnie Silk. He's working now the inside lane underneath Austin Beers down in turn 3. Beers slides up just enough, and Ronnie Silk pulls to the bottom and tries to draw in line behind the 79 of McKennedy. As a matter of fact,
3 wide as they come off that turn. They come back to the turn number 1, and it is the 16 moving into the 3rd spot, but Dave Zappienza is not going to give up without a fight, Joe, in the upper lane.
Zappienza holding on to the top side of the racetrack. Up front, the battle's starting to intensify. Max McLaughlin looks in the rear-view mirror. Now he looks to his left side, and it's Justin Bonsignore looking to take over the race lead for the first time here today. The defending race winner out in front here in Richmond.
No question about it. Remember, Bonsignore made a pit stop that looked like it was different than everybody else. It wasn't a problem, obviously. Ryan Stone found the magic again. Meanwhile, here comes Silk. Silk with a 16 to the inside, now challenging Max McLaughlin. Shakes him off in the Mohawk car, the Curb Records machine. Good battle for second.
Ronnie Silk, really good car here after this pit stop. Driving to the front, slides Max McLaughlin up the racetrack, nearly coming together with the Nerf bars on those machine. But Ronnie Silk back into the 2nd spot. Now here comes Austin Beers trying to make up for lost ground. Still has a quick race car, but he restarted back in the 10th position when we got back under the green flag because of losing a couple of spots on pit road. He's making up for that ground pretty quickly.
Brand new leader comes off and around the number 51. It is Ronnie Silk. who takes over the lead, the current point leader of the Whelen Modified Tour. Bonsignor settles back in second. Max McLaughlin is in third. And Austin Beers. Joe, Austin Beers is running a completely different line now than he ran at the start of this event. He's trying to make things happen on the bottom as well as the outside.
A little deeper in the pack, Brian Narducci working the outside of Eric Goodale. This is a battle for the 8th spot. Narducci's been inside the top 10 most of the day, and Tommy Catalano off the pace on the back straightaway as the race leaders pour on the steam in turn 2.
Tough break. Meanwhile, look back up front, and there is the bid. Heavy pressure being applied. Austin Beers now tries to make a bid for the inside. Will it stick? Will it happen? Justin Bonsignor still holding. Brings the car down a bit. Here comes Austin Beers. Doug Colby is right there now, Joe.
What we're seeing out of Austin Beers is a different style of driver. Colby, though, drives down to the bottom. The battle for second. Beers trying to hold on to the outside lane against a 6-time Whelen Modified Tour champion in Colby. And Colby is able to take over second in turn 1. Ben, what I was going to say is Austin Beers last year, he was a bit cautious. And now today we're seeing an aggressiveness and a confidence out of Austin Beers that I think has suited him well in the first couple of races and is part of why he's been so strong today.
Let's look a little further back in this field. Eric Goodale is running in the 7th spot with the GAF machine. He is applying the pressure to Max McLaughlin. He made it look easy. McLaughlin is starting to falter just a bit. He starts to drift back. Oh, and back up front. Little contact there, Joe.
Colby was into the back of Ronnie Silk on the back straightaway. The two cars coming together. It lost a bit of momentum, but Colby back on the attack, drives to the inside and takes over the race lead.
Colby in command now. Silk runs in his tire tracks. Then it's Eric Beers still sitting in the 3rd spot. Now, as we look at those 3 cars, they start to string it out at the point. Single file formation, but for how long as they work their magic and they cross the stripe again.
So the top 3 able to break away, but this has been a tremendous battle, and we just crossed the halfway point of today's Virginia is for Racing Lovers 150, and it's been a barn burner so far. Doug Colby finds himself in the race lead. Ronnie Silk is right there along with him, and the young Austin Beers fighting for that first Modified Tour victory, running in 3rd.
Doing a great job as he has been high, low on the racetrack. He is there. Look a little further back. Here is another good battle that is starting to develop, and that is between Patrick Emmerling and the number 5 car of Embersol. That is the battle for the 12th and the 13th position. Sapienza is running 11th. Max McLaughlin has dropped back to 10th.
McLaughlin decided to stay out under that last caution. He had the race lead, but he's backpedaling quickly as he goes 3 wide in the middle, split by Ebersol and Patrick Emmerling in the 07. Same story for the 36 of Dave Sapienza. That restart, boy, it did not last very long when they went back under the green flag. Those old tires just not holding up.
And you might be wondering where Bobby Labonte is. Well, he's back in the 15th position, and you can see him trying to work magic on the inside there to try to pick up a spot. Still side by side, Ebersol, the number 5 machine. Sapienza, the 36, loose off the turn. Emmerling is right there, and we've got a 3-car bid directly behind them.
That is Bobby Labonte, who had raced his way inside the top 5 earlier in the day today, but as you mentioned, back in 15th. Here's that battle again for Kyle Ebersol. Ebersol, who actually works for Technique Chassis, which is a chassis manufacturer for all of the next-gen NASCAR Cup Series car, is very integrated in the racing business and has been a regular over the past several seasons in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. He's running 12th right now, directly behind Dave Sapienza in the 36.
Sapienza was doing a good job running up front in the competition. As we said, he came on very strong in the first race of the season. That's another team that changed, well, their crew chief and changed a lot of the chemistry involved with the race car as well. So Sapienza still holding off. Ebersol right there with him, and directly behind Ebersol's machine is J.B. Fortin's number 34 car, but there is your leader, Doug Colby, the Mayhew Baldwin Automotive machine.
66 laps to go. Doug Colby leading the way here in Richmond for the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour.
So we continue to look a little further back in the field here, and there is still that battle that's been going on, and all of a sudden we see the 38 machine of Labonte. Makes a little contact there, a little bump move, trying to get around. Directly in front of Labonte is Andrew Krause, the 24 car, and J.B. Fortin with the number. The Fortin machine has worked its way. It was in the 10th spot just a few laps ago.
That's a good run for J.B. Fortin. They had a strong start to the beginning of last year in that 34 car, and the back half of the season was a struggle. They needed to reset for that 34. 15th right now in the running order as Bobby Labonte directly ahead, and Labonte trying to see if he can find a little bit more speed in that 38 car as he begins to challenge on the New Jersey driver, the 24 of Andrew Krause off turn 2.
Oh, Krause is on the upper lane. Labonte has been able to find some magic once in a while when he peeked to the inside. But if you notice, Krause would bring the car down and do exactly what he's supposed to do, and that's guard that position. Meanwhile, directly in front of him is, it is another challenger, Dave Sapienza. While we go up front and take a look at the Eric Goodale number 58 car, which has worked its way into the top 5. And guess what, Joe? Brian Narducci is in the 4th position. He is coming back to the lead as well.
Yeah, here's that battle off turn 2. Brian Narducci holding on in Old Blue, a good solid top 5 run in his NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour debut. But Eric Goodale starting to come on late in the going, and that is traditionally what we see out of Eric Goodale. He is good at the end of these races, second half driver. And, you know, Stephen Kopchik relayed to me earlier, he's a crew chief for Anthony Cecily. He says, you know what, if we're slow in practice, that's fine. If we're a little quicker in qualifying, that's good. But I want to be fast in the second half of the race. Now, Anthony Cecily has crashed out, but you know what? Eric Goodale has followed that pattern. He's now a car that is coming to life at the right time. The rubber of the Modified Tour is on the racetrack. The Xfinity Series rubber is gone. They've got another set of tires that he can go and get. He's challenging for a top 4 position, and that car, all of a sudden, has got one of the fastest lap times on the racetrack.
It certainly does, and he makes the move down underneath Brian Narducci. Goodale puts the GAF machine up to position number 4. His next target will be, once he gets by him, he literally starts to pull away by about a car length and a half in less than 2 turns.
Pretty big gap, though, 3.5 seconds back behind the race leader, Doug Coby. A long way to go, but that is a lot of ground to make up when you've got to get through Doug Coby, Ron Silk on screen, and Austin Beers, who continues to have a strong run inside the top 3 here today, chasing 2 former champions. There you see the differential. Doug Coby, 1.8 second advantage over Ronnie Silk in second. And, you know, Coby said before this race, he said, I have no idea what kind of race car I need at Richmond. I am not really good at this racetrack. I'm going to have to lean on my crew chief, Tommy Baldwin, who knows this racetrack well. Ronnie Silk, Phil Moran, that's a combination that has been well. Remember, Phil Moran, just as much as Tommy Baldwin, has played in the NASCAR National Series. He was a longtime crew member with Tommy Baldwin at not only Tommy Baldwin Racing, but also at the Bill Davis Racing when Tommy Baldwin was there. So these 2 crew chiefs, Baldwin the car owner, Moran just a crew chief, know each other very well. They know their tendencies well, and they know Richmond really well.
They certainly do, and you're seeing an example of that as well as we continue to watch. The margin is starting to close up a bit as Austin Beers is reeling in on the Ron Silk machine. As we can see, look at this battle now as Bonsignor is trying to shake off the Andrew Krause car, and then right there with the Krause machine and moving into contend was Labonte for a minute. Then he was forced to back out of it just a bit. Krause doing a little kiss to the back bumper there. Now Krause goes to the inside. Bonsignor shifts back 1, and Labonte is right there with an inside move.
So that strategy call for Justin Bonsignor and Ryan Stone to come down early got him the track position, but as the run has gone on, they haven't been able to maintain that. Now, should we get another caution, everybody's going to be able to come down pit road. So that call, the early pit stop, it's not paying off here as we go a little bit later into the run, and Justin Bonsignor now falls back outside the top 10. But the car that's coming to life, look at him get sideways there off turn number 4. He used the paint on the inside lane of the racetrack to snap the car sideways. A little bit slicker down there, Ben. That's a technique you can use here at Richmond.
Sure
and
can.
Bobby Labonte gaining spots. Now he's on the attack under Andrew Krause off 2.
He has been working him over. He just hasn't been able to find the right sweet spot to be able to take over the position. He is there. Krause is a little bit loose at times. When that happens, you'll see Labonte pull back and almost run in his tire tracks. But it is still Krause that continues to pull away. But here comes Labonte again. Labonte has the car to the inside. But all of a sudden, it is a McDonald car, a lapped automobile just in the line of fire, and that costs Labonte some very valuable ground on the racetrack.
I haven't talked a lot about Andrew Krause, and he's had a solid run today, too. Inside the top 10, making his 51st start here today for the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, a track champion at the Wall Stadium in New Jersey. And he's having his best run here, but Kyle Bonsignore now brings out the 5th caution of the day. He spins to the inside of turn number 2. He's able to get that car rolling once again, but it's the 5th caution of the day and an opportune time here with 49 laps to go to see everybody come down pit road and get tires here in the Virginia's for Racing Lovers 150 at the Richmond Raceway. So the dynamics will put everything in the hands of the crew chiefs and the crew members down on pit road. Doug Coby, his lead that was up to 3.5 seconds before the caution flag came out. We'll see that erased, and now he'll have everybody bearing down on him, and what'll be a short feature-length modified shootout to end this one here today in Richmond.
It certainly will, Joe. You have to keep your eyes on Eric Goodale as well, because he was turning some of the quickest laps of this event. Now, you pointed out a few laps ago how Goodale's strategy is to run strong in the closing laps of the program. That is exactly what he's doing. As we have 48 laps to go, and it is far from over with. You know, as we look down, Brian Narducci's worked his way back into the top 5. But what about Corey DiMatteo? He is in the 6th spot. Now, DiMatteo, we talked about that race car. He started back in the 23rd position. And a car that Corey LaJoie had a success story with and so forth with it. And this, the Davini family, this would be a great day for them, the Extreme Racing team as well, is that white number 17. They had a problem with the carburetor, and JJVC was able to get it back, and that forced them to start way in the back of the field.
You know what's interesting? You see the 3 of Brian Narducci and the 17 of Corey DiMatteo. Both those drivers raced against each other in the SK Modified division at Stafford Speedway. Both today make their NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour debut. They're both running inside the top 6. There has never been, outside of Richie Evans in the first race of the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, a driver who has won in their first start in the series. Both those drivers having strong runs here today.
They certainly do. And the interesting part is they're friends, you know. They actually have competed, come up through the carts. They run at Stafford. They're champions in their own rights as well. Down on pit road, just as you called it, Joe, they are coming in. And let's see who is going to be the best at getting them out. There is a look at the Baldwin machine jacking up the back of the car. There's a look at the Ronnie Silk number 16 car. And the car that you see to the left of your screen is the Goodale car. Then there is the Austin Beers car that was running in the 3rd position. Changing right side rubber. And who's going to make it out first, Joe?
And one of the cars that's going to win the race off pit road, it's going to be the 58 car of Eric Goodale. He gets off pit road first. Very efficient pit stop for him, and he will now be at the head of the class here in Richmond. So how about that work? Eric Goodale gets the win off pit road. We talk so much about the strength of what is a NASCAR Cup Series-led former Daytona 500 champion crew in Tommy Baldwin, but these are the guys next door, your neighbors down on Long Island in this 58, and they are the drivers that will restart here in Richmond when we come back for the finish of the Virginia is for Racing Lovers 150. We will reset the starting lineup for the restart. When we come back, we'll have more for the Whelen Modified Tour from Richmond in a moment. Back here at the Richmond Raceway, after a round of pit stops, Eric Goodale now out in front. He'll line up alongside J.B. Fortin to the outside of the front row. Ronnie Silk and Doug Kobe in row number 2. And Austin Beers, who has led quite a few laps here today, will restart in 5th. 44 laps to go when the green flag flies, and the Virginia is for Racing Lovers 150. We're back underway in Richmond.
We are back underway, and what a scramble initially, but it's Goodale that is the man who sets the pace, the GAF roofing machine, but a side-by-side battle for second. Here comes Ronnie Silk, the 16 car. All of a sudden, the inside lane is starting to open up, and Austin Beers is trying to follow Silk to the front of the class.
On prior starts, the outside lane had the advantage, but today in this late race restart, it's Eric Goodale to the bottom that jumps out to the race lead for the first time here today. Ronnie Silk in second. We should reset a couple of drivers that were inside the top 10 when the caution came out. Corey DiMatteo came on pit road 6th. He went out 17th, and he's deep in the pack. Here's Austin Beers now up to second. He's challenging now for the top spot in turn 1.
He makes the nice move to the inside as he rumbles to the bottom of the racetrack, sets the car, stands on the gas, and Eric Beers' son, Austin Beers, once again takes back position number 1. Goodale is still nipping at the back bumper. Doug Colby is still right there in the tire tracks in the 3rd position.
Austin Beers out in front. The Virginia is for Racing Lovers 150 here at Richmond Raceway. Can he hold on for the final 41 laps? A lot of racing left to go, and they're bearing down on him in turn 3. Doug Kobe drives down to the bottom of Eric Goodale, slides him up the racetrack. Goodale back to 3rd, and Doug Kobe now on the hunt, focused on Austin Beers.
It is Kobe now in second. Now here comes the bid for the 3rd position, making it look easy. Silk makes the move. Here's the crossover. Goodale tries to come back out and pick up the spot, but Silk will shake him off. Behind him is Patrick Emmerling, setting in the 5th spot. Justin Bonsignor up to position number 6, and then it's J.B. Fortin back in 7th.
Here's Emmerling. He's been aggressive on the entrance of turn number 1. He'll drive down to the inside of Eric Goodale. After that tire change, Goodale's car does not have the speed that he had prior to the pit stop. He's backpedaling here after the restart. Up front, Austin Beers looks in the rearview mirror. Doug Kobe is there as they come off turn 4.
Back to the stripe they come. Beers is still in command, setting a blistering pace at the point. But Colby is getting closer, reeling him in. The margin is getting quicker and quicker between the 1st and 2nd place car. Silk still setting in 3rd. Patrick Emmerling still in the 4th position. And it is Eric Goodale who drops back to position number 5.
The race leaders down into turn 1. Kobe following in the tire tracks of Austin Beers. They run the bottom lane through turns 1 and 2. Beers with a slight advantage to the back straightaway.
The rest of the field like a conga line. Single file formation, but not for long. Here comes Kobe again, working his magic behind the leader, Austin Beers. Beers, who has been so impressive for a youngster. He's driving more like a veteran each and every circuit. Let's look a little further back in the field, and there is the Ebersol machine, car number 5. That's the battle for the 8th and the 9th position. Narducci in the 3 is directly in front of that battle, and all of a sudden, he's come back to life, the number 22 car of Kyle Bonsignor.
Nearly getting into the side of J.B. Fortin, who started on the front row when we took the green flag just a handful of laps ago. Fortin out of shape. He had to chase the car up the racetrack off turn 2. Labonte will go to his inside and pick up the spot, as McKennedy in the middle of this battle as well in this 79 car. So there's Bobby Labonte, NASCAR Hall of Famer in the 38 machine, trying to make up for lost ground here as he challenges on the back bumper of John McKennedy.
There's no question Labonte is definitely showing his talents as a driver, as there is working the magic. A good battle going on right there for that 10th position. John McKennedy, remember for a while he was strong up front, Joe, and then all of a sudden pit strategies changed. Things got a little different, but he's coming back to life as well.
Here's Labonte trying to crack the top 10. Sailed in a little bit high through turns 1 and 2. Gains momentum at the exit of turn number 2. Trying to size up John McKennedy. Looks high again in 3.
Well, he is sizing up the defending champion of the Whelen Modified Tour. McKennedy is there. He is working his magic as his target in front of him is Kyle Bonsignor. Labonte You got to admit it. Labonte is giving it his all every lap. He is now looking to the outside, Joe. He was almost there going into the turn. Will Labonte have enough to pull it off against John McKennedy?
The crafty veteran has been trying to set this pass up over a couple of laps. He was faking down to the inside lane, but to the outside goes Bobby Labonte, and he now moves into the top 10 position. Directly ahead, Kyle Bonsignor recovering from that spin a few cautions ago. Next car in the crosshairs of Bobby Labonte.
Labonte is still reeling in on the number 22 car. Same kind of strategy. If you're watching how he does this, he's trying to set up the move that he just applied and worked to get the position that he has. That was breaking him into contention for the 10th spot. Now he's looking for it again. Goes low, drifts to the outside just a bit. Can't do it. Ebersol in front of them in the 5 car. Here comes Labonte again. This time, now we see Kyle Bonsignor make the move underneath Ebersol.
Labonte not close enough to be able to capitalize on that. Ebersol will cut to the inside off turn number 2 and see if he can get back underneath Kyle Bonsignor. It's not going to happen, though. Here's Labonte again, looking to the outside groove of turns 3 and 4.
Labonte is there on the upper lane. Ebersol is on the bottom. They come off the turn. Give position number 9 to the number. Oh, trouble now. We've got a spin.
Tyler Ripkema goes spinning off turn number 2, and the caution flag is back out for the 6th time here today in Richmond. And Tyler Ripkema, a solo spin, no contact, and he's able to get that car rolling once again here in Richmond. The NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, the finish coming up next from Richmond Raceway. There is your race leader, Austin Beers, and prior to this caution coming out, had extended a 0.3 of a second advantage over Doug Coby. Here's a look at what happened to the 32 of Tyler Ripkema. He was running inside the top 10 underneath Eric Goodale, and his car just stepped out and spun around. He was running in the 8th position at the time when Tyler Ripkema spun on his own, so a late spin will take away a probable top 10 for Tyler Ripkema here today.
Well, he has enough time to perhaps get back into the top 10. We look down, and Bobby Labonte has moved into the 9th position. Kyle Bonsignor, of course, he's been running with him. They've been dicing back and forth, and now you can see that Labonte is 9th. Ebersol is in the 10th position, and in the 11th position is John McKennedy, the defending champion of the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. We are looking back through the field, and we're trying to pick up where the number 60 is of Matt Hirschman. Joe, he's in the 16th position. But there's the guy who is a mover and a shaker in this event.
Bobby Labonte has been fun to watch. Right now he's in the 9th position in that 30. There's a 60 of Matt Hirschman. Remember, he pitted early in the race. We'll get back to Bobby Labonte here in a minute. The 60 of Matt Hirschman, 16th, could not quite get that pit sequence. They had to go off strategy to make up for lost ground. This team making their first start in the Whelen Modified Tour. It's not been the smoothest of weekend for them, but Matt Hirschman always finds a way to make it work. And, you know, he's not all that far outside the top 10. How much race car he has left? Well, that'll be left to be seen as we get towards the finish, the final 26 laps of this one. But Matt Hirschman has been fighting and digging all weekend long, trying to salvage a good finish. Bobby Labonte, we saw him work in the outside lane. Nobody else in the field has been doing that, but you can see the crafty veteran who finds the most in his race car, changes his line, sets a driver up, and then executes 2 or 3 laps later to make a pass.
It's a mind game, and that's exactly what he's doing. He looked to the inside, worked his strategy, and then he would shift back up to the outside of the racetrack. Finally, he pulled it off. We were talking about Matt Hirschman. He is back down on pit road. It looks like they're making a tire pressure adjustment. John McKennedy, defending series champion, is down on pit road with the number 79 car, and it looks like they're putting a rounded wedge in the right front of that car. Fortin is back out as well, but John McKennedy, this is going to hurt him a little bit, Joe, as he's down off the jack and heading back out now.
So John McKennedy put a right rear tire on his race car. There's 17 cars that were shown on the lead lap when the caution flag came out, so it'll be 18 with the free pass when we go back into the green flag. John McKennedy is used to racing in divisions that you can only change one tire on the race car. And which tire do you change?
Always the same.
Always the right rear. So interesting strategy for John McKennedy to put that right rear tire on. We saw how important tires were early. Is that enough for him to crack the top 10 here with only 23 laps to go when they get the green flag here at the end of today's race?
So it looks like 24 to go, and you look at the field, and again, take a look at that front row, and you have to give credit where credit is due. And young Austin Beers, he has definitely driven the race of his career. And to the outside of him is the Doug Colby, number 7, the Tommy Baldwin race car, huge factor. Patrick Emmerling, we talked about that at the start of this event. Patrick Emmerling really has more laps today on this racetrack than anyone in this field.
250 laps in the NASCAR Xfinity Series right before this. Now, 150 laps in the Virginia is for Racing Lovers 150. 23 laps to go when they get the green flag here at the Richmond Raceway. Austin Beers, the race leader, restarts on the bottom lane of the racetrack, going for his first career NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour victory. The pace car is in. They're back through the restart zone, and the green flag is out.
Green flag is out. Bottom of the racetrack into turn number 1. Pretty much evenly matched. It is Beers by a tire. As he comes off the turn, Eric Beers is back in command. Here comes Kobe. Here comes Patrick Emmerling. Car number 07. But Ronnie Silk has quickly moved back into the 3rd position in the upper lane. Short-lived because Patrick Emmerling takes back 3rd.
Emmerling up to 3rd. Now Ronnie Silk pokes a nose to the inside. Behind them, Justin Bonsignor, his car coming back to life, working to the inside of Brian Narducci, who gets loose off turn 2, gathers it back in, and falls back to 6th.
Brian Narducci does the Timex move of the event. He gathers it back impressively. Narducci looking very, very strong, still right in this in the 6th spot. Eric Goodale is back up to 7th. Kyle Bonsignor has had an up-and-down day in 8th, and Labonte is still in the 9th position. Rounding out the top 10 is Kyle Ebersol. There's a Labonte car, and he is being hunted down by literally a group of heavy hitters because Max McLaughlin is coming back to life as well.
And Max McLaughlin has learned what Bobby Labonte has done through turns 3 and 4 to go the outside. Now Labonte stuck nearly in the middle of a 3 wide. J.B. Fortin wrestles him up the racetrack in turn 2, picks up another spot. How about Justin Bonsignor, though? Down to the bottom of turn 3, works underneath Patrick Emmerling. This is a battle for the 3rd spot.
He makes it look so easy. It is Justin Bonsignor, defending race winner. Now pulling out of line. Patrick Emmerling moves to the bottom, moves in and out. Here's the crossover. Here comes again the challenge. Meanwhile, Justin Bonsignor sees an opening. He tries to pull it off. Look out, here comes Brian Narducci and Ron Silk.
A half a lap. They swapped the 3rd position 3 times. Here comes Justin Bonsignor diving back to the inside of turn number 1. He'll take over 3rd. That opens a door for Ronnie Silk and Brian Narducci to try to make room to the inside.
Brian Narducci is there. He tries. It doesn't work. Emmerling tapping on the back bumper of Justin Bonsignor. It is Bonsignor still holding on in that 3rd position. Meanwhile, it's still a good battle behind them as well. Nobody's giving up any space on this racetrack. It's 17 laps to go in this event. Emmerling does not pull out of line. Single file, only car to pull out, and he changed his strategy, Joe, was Narducci with car number 3. He went from the inside to the outside, back to the bottom.
Single file for the first time in just a handful of laps. To go a little bit further, inside the top 10, car stepping out of line is a 34 of J.B. Fortin. He'll bring Max McLaughlin right along with him, so Fortin now picks up a spot. McLaughlin now back inside the top 10.
McLaughlin got a little bit loose that time. He gathered it back, but right behind him there is also a heavy challenge being put on. Eric Goodale has dropped back to the 9th spot. Labonte is holding on in the top 10. Fortin trying everything. Narducci losing some valuable ground on the racetrack. He's stuck on the inside lane.
Narducci now up to the high side of the racetrack as McLaughlin gets through. We talked about that right rear tire that John McKennedy came down pit road and got. He has been able to pick up a couple of spots up to 14th. He's just at the top of your screen now as we watch Max McLaughlin drive the outside lane. And boy, J.B. Fortin in the second half of this race, his last run to the checkers, is so strong. He protects the bottom, tries to pinch off Max McLaughlin in turn 3. They nearly came together, and McLaughlin had to roll out of the throttle.
And while all that has been happening, it is Emberling who is still all over the back bumper of Justin Bonsignore. Remember, Bonsignore defending race winner, so he is hungry. Here comes Fortin now, working his magic also. To the inside, looking racy. Here comes J.B. Fortin. He has got a car on rails this late in the event with 12 laps to go.
Now, Justin Bonsignore is on the move. Remember, he took the win 11 laps from the finish a year ago. Now, 12 laps to go. He moves into second underneath Doug Coby. He ran him down, and he went by him as if he was standing still. Emmerling comes on through. Here comes J.B. Fortin, and Max McLaughlin as a 7 New York Coby begins to fade with 11 to go.
There's no question about it. Max McLaughlin, I think, has passed more cars than anyone else in the field. He was up front, went to the back, started in the back. Meanwhile, Fortin is still there. Coby's car slips back just a bit. Doug Coby drops back into a battle in the 4th position there as well.
Out front, Austin Beers holds a 2.1 second advantage. We watch the battle here between Ronnie Silk and Doug Coby. This is the battle for the 7th spot. Silk underneath, looking to bring Bobby Labonte along with him as Coby now fading terribly here in the late going in Richmond, falling to the bottom half of the top 10. Narducci is there, Eric Goodale is there, but something amiss with the 7 New York of Doug Coby. Up front, Austin Beers, his 22nd career start, and a 2.3 second advantage over a quickly coming Justin Bonsignore, who runs second.
And while that has been happening, Max McLaughlin has quickly moved into the 4th position. J.B. Fortin is now sitting back in the 5th spot. Emmerling is right there in that pack of cars as well, but it's Beers still in command. Meanwhile, Max McLaughlin still cutting and threading his way through this field. His next target becomes Justin Bonsignore. Just a few laps ago, he was looking like a shoo-in. Here comes again the battle there, and Fortin is right there in a 3-car bid. But there is your leader, Austin Beers, in search of his first career victory, and what a big one it would be for Ron Newhouse, the crew chief, Murphy, and the rest of the gang associated with that car.
That gap back to Justin Bonsignore in this battle we watch between 2nd, 3rd, and 4th is only getting larger now. 2.6 seconds the advantage for the young Pennsylvania driver Austin Beers. The battle for 3rd, J.B. Fortin working down to the inside lane underneath Max McLaughlin, trying to have one of his best finishes of his NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour career today.
He's doing a great job as he manages to get the car to the bottom. Max McLaughlin continues to run to the back bumper of Bonsignore's. 3 cars bidding for position, but there is the leader. 6 laps and counting down in this event. Meanwhile, still a 3-car battle going on, and it is between Bonsignore, who is really trying everything to hold off J.B. Fortin. What a run for Fortin in this event, and here comes McLaughlin. Down low, McLaughlin moves to the inside. Car number 77 makes its move. It is Max McLaughlin to the inside of Fortin. Max McLaughlin is now moved into contention in the 3rd position, forcing Fortin back to position 4.
McLaughlin sideways off turn 2 that time, gathers it back in, but loses ground to J.B. Fortin. His best career finish, 3rd in his career. That came at Jennerstown Speedway for J.B. Fortin last season. He's hoping to get 2nd, and he does so now as he dives underneath turn number 1. Goes by Justin Bonsignore, but Bonsignore rallies back to the bottom.
He tries to make the crossover work. They touch. Fortin gathers it back. Bonsignore muscles his way to the bottom, right there with him and challenging. It is a great battle going on between these 3 cars. McLaughlin is there as well.
2 laps to go, though, as this battle for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rages on here in the late going. It's been a fun one. Max McLaughlin has been great to watch all day long, but off turn number 4, looking for the white flag this time by Austin Beers in his first career Whelen Modified Tour on the line, leads the field back to turn 1.
No question, he's done his homework. He's did his job. They are long overdue for a victory. Murphy and the gang associated with Ron Newhouse. It is Austin Beers heading to victory lane here from Richmond International Speedway.
Off turn number 4, checkered flag is waving, and Austin Beers is a winner in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. Justin Bonsignore will hold on to the second position. Max McLaughlin will come across in third. J.B. Fortin finished off a great run for him in fourth. But Austin Beers, unbelievable. This 64 team, Mike Murphy has never gone to victory lane as a car owner in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. He tabbed Austin Beers late in the 2021 season. This kid dominated the weekend. He won practice. He was on the pole today, and he won. This year's Virginia is her Racing Lovers 150, and he's going to turn it around and do a Polish victory lap here in Richmond.
An amazing job by this team. Ronnie Newhouse, Sly Zabin has been involved. This team, well, just down the road from the London Waterford Speed Bowl, it operates from, and Mike Murphy, the Flying Irishman, the owner of the automobile. They call it the A-Team. You can see it on the back of the race car as well. And here he is about ready to get out of the race car, and what a day this is. 3 generations of the Beers family have competed. The grandfather, a legendary driver, the father, Eric, and now Austin Beers. There he is, ladies and gentlemen, out of the car, on top of the roof. He is our winner here from Richmond.
What a moment for this young man. Came in with all kinds of confidence at the start of the season. You know, last year he had good runs, but the confidence that he carried here today showed his poise, and I think all the expectations that folks in the industry had around what he could do. So successful on the short tracks, Evergreen Speedway out in western Pennsylvania, but today Austin Beers shown he was a contender, beat some of the best, the champions of Doug Coby and Justin Bonsignore, to earn on the biggest stage here at Richmond Raceway.
He certainly has, and like we said, so deserving. This crew has worked so hard over the years. They've had so many good people, and they just never had any luck. Today, all of that luck has changed, and car number 64 will probably head to the winner's circle. Big surprise story in this event, I think, is who finished second, third, and fourth.
Yeah, looking at the scoring, it is J.B. Fortin who, according to our scoring, came home in second. And boy, he and Max McLaughlin, they were having a lot of fun out on the racetrack, and you can see that intensity build. I don't think J.B. Fortin has a lot of people happy with him. He got into the 77 of Max McLaughlin, getting down towards pit road. Justin Bonsignore gave him the right hip coming down onto pit road. I'm sure they're all going to have some conversations after this one, but it certainly was entertaining for J.B. Fortin to get his career best finish.
What about Gary Putnam's race car, the Curb Records machine? Max McLaughlin, he passed more cars than anybody else in the field. And just as we talked about it, it appears that, well, some tempers are high.
Boy, all 3 of them in there. Max McLaughlin is in there, J.B. Fortin, Justin Bonsignore. Those 2 drivers came from the Riverhead Raceway on Long Island. They know each other well. You see J.B. Fortin having a conversation. He walks away. Bonsignore, McLaughlin in the middle of this, and boy, they are heated. You can see that intensity and that heat on the racetrack as we watched it from here, but you know, that's short track racing.
It is.
That's short track racing.
And it's not just short track racing. It's what modified racing is all about, Joe. That's what we're used to seeing, and that's exactly what we just witnessed. There's the crew congratulating their team and their car. The big winner here, there's no question about it, and so deserving and long overdue. They say wins, well, they breed wins. So this is their first win on the Whelen Modified Tour, and I think you're going to see a lot of wins for the remainder of this season. And there is a very ecstatic, look at the roof, Joe, of the 64 car. Those guys don't care at all. They just are so thrilled, and there's the big handshake of one of the crew members to congratulate this young man.
Those roofs are hard to find. That is the only part of a modified race car.
It's priceless,
That's
Joe.
the only part of a modified race car that's a production piece on these race cars, that roof. And they're going to have to go and replace that, but well worth it. That's going to be hanging in the shop.
That's right.
At the 64 camp with that victory.
It certainly is. And as we can see, it is heading to the winner's circle, a spot that team has not only dreamt about, but they've inspired to, and they never gave up. If you remember several years back, Ronnie Uhouse drove the car, had a lot of success with it. He was involved in a very serious accident at New Hampshire, took over the reins as a crew chief. They had a lot of other crew chiefs as well, and there is Ronnie Uhouse alongside to congratulate. And what a day it is for the entire group that is involved with Mike Murphy and everybody. And there is Ronnie Uhouse, the gentleman there who is talking to the NASCAR officials to the left of your screen. And he has worked very hard and is very deserving of this. And Austin Beers, they made the right choice. This kid has got the it factor. There is no question about that situation with him as well.
So Austin Beers down in victory lane here at the Richmond Raceway, victorious here today. His first career victory in 22 starts, won it from the Mayhew Tools pole position here today. He comes out of the race car, Austin Beers, victorious for the first time in the Whelen Modified Tour.
And there he is, ecstatic and happy for securing this amazing victory. And it's a day that he will always remember, and so won't all of us, because it was a great race.
He was smart. You know, early in the race, we talked about the strength of the outside lane, and he took advantage of that. But as the racetrack changed, as the sun began to set here in Richmond, the temperature changed, the rubber got on the racetrack, the bottom lane was more advantageous. That team made the adjustment over those past two restarts, and that helped them get to victory lane. It probably didn't hurt them any that they were having a dogfight for second, third, and fourth. That discussion continues on pit road while
sure
the celebration
does.
here in victory lane for Austin Beers and his entire team. So much to break down in this race. I mean, the aggressiveness. I mean, that battle for second, third, and fourth was aggressive.
Unbelievable.
But it wasn't where they were really throwing the elbow. They weren't hip-checking each other.
No, not at all.
It was clean. It was aggressive. But, boy, there are some drivers that are hot after that battle.
They sure are. And amazingly enough, J.B. Fortin turned in what we would refer to as one of his best runs on this speedway. Max McLaughlin passed more cars than anybody else. Justin Bonsignore, defending race winner. Patrick Emmerling, he ran in the top 5 throughout the entire event. We're all well aware about that. And what about Bobby Labonte? If anyone doubted Labonte isn't a modified guy, they didn't watch this race, because he really proved himself well to finish among the top 6 positions. Ronnie Silk back in 7th. Brian Narducci, first outing, great job. Eric Goodale will round out the top 10.
Good run for Bobby Labonte in that 6 car, man. He was so much fun to watch.
There's his dad, Eric Beers.
Austin Beers getting congratulations.
Yes,
there's a moment.
by his dad.
There's a moment.
Eric drove my race car for 2 seasons. It was a great driver, real professional. And there's all those guys that have worked so hard. There is Sly Zabin, the one without the hat on. He was involved in Flamingo. They're congratulating. And now we're looking for the car owner as well. There's Mr. Marcotte. He's been with Ronnie Uhouse for years, the elderly gentleman on the left-hand side. And there's the big hug and kiss from Mom there as well for a job well done. And Ryan Stone also coming over to congratulate our winner. And boy, does this team deserve the success that they've had.
Yeah, what a day here for this team. I mean, it came out strong. Ryan Stone, that's the crew chief there for Justin Bonsignore, congratulating Austin Beers on his first ever victory. There is Mike Murphy, the car owner, coming in to offer congratulations to his driver. And Mike Murphy,
he's an awesome guy.
He's invested in the Whelen Modified Tour from Ireland.
Never misses a race. He's the greatest guy you could ever talk to. You can tell he's out of breath. He's all ecstatic and pumped up. And then Ronnie Uhouse, it is really what we would have to call a Cinderella story. There's no question about it. And a great one. You know, this event was called Virginia is for Lovers 150. And I'm going to tell you something. Austin Beers is a believer and a lover in the 150 here at Richmond.
Absolutely the victor here today in Richmond. Let's take a look at the final rundown. Austin Beers with that first career victory. J.B. Fortin gets a career best in second today. Max McLaughlin third. Justin Bonsignore and Patrick Emmerling rounding out the top 5. NASCAR Hall of Famer and former Cup Series champion Bobby Labonte 6th. Ronnie Silk 7th. Brian Narducci in his debut finishes 8th. John McKennedy rallied back to 9th. And Eric Goodale was 10th.
And rounding out the 11th position is Kyle Bonsignore. Kyle Ebersol will finish in 12th. Doug Colby who ran up front most of the day, finishes 13th. And Dave Zapienza will finish in the 14th position. Rounding out the top 15th, he started scratch. Not bad. Justin Brown to finish in the 15th spot.
That's how the top 15 went here from Richmond Raceway. An outstanding race. There's going to be plenty to talk about after this one, but we do hope that you join us the next time the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour is in action is on Saturday, May 6th. It's one of the JDV production events for the start of the Whelen Granite State Cup, and it takes place up at the Monadnock Speedway in Winchester, New Hampshire, and that is always a thrilling event.
It is the best stop, and if you know anything about JVP Productions, is they put it all together and make it interesting and perhaps a little unique. Head to the high banks of Monadnock. We'll be there.
It's going to be a fun
can't
one.
miss it.
We can't wait. Early May. We hope to see you there. It was a great day here in Richmond. We thank you for joining us as Austin Beers collects his very first NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour victory. Until Monadnock, take care. We'll see you then on Flow Racing.